Kaustubh Belapurkar. He's the Director of Fund Research at Morningstar Investment Advisers with us in our studios. Great to have you on board, Kaustubh. Let's just talk a little bit about the trends with the, some of the large cap funds. What has been on their radar by way of buys?
Sure. So, to just set the context, we saw a fair bit of buying in the month of July. But if you see, half of that has actually come from the CPSE ETF, so those 4 or 5 large PSU names that we saw almost 11,000 crores of purchases that happened. But beyond that, I think nothing has materially changed. So your corporate banks kind of still rule the roost. So your Axis, ICICI are still leading sort of the charge on that, what managers are buying. Beyond that, we haven't really seen too much sizable sort of buying activity, to be honest. The good part is that we haven't seen too much selling either on the large caps or the mid caps, which is probably a little bit of heartening sign. And I tie that back to the flows which have come in from domestic investors. They've probably gone up a tad, which is great because you've seen the markets correctly kind of come down quite sharply. So we haven't seen outflows, which is great.
Yeah. Okay. So let's break it up and let's talk about that one high flyer which has sort of held the Nifty off late, and that's Reliance Industries.
Right.
What are the kind of flows that you've seen in the last 3 trading sessions post the AGM last weekend in Reliance, given that the stock has moved almost 10-12% since?
So I obviously want to have a pulse of the flows, what's happened in this month. But if you've seen increasingly what's been happening, and I would say over the last maybe 18 months, we've seen incremental additions to Reliance, month on month, and that's
even building up to the AGM.
Absolutely. So we saw about 1,000 crores of purchases in Reliance last month, and I wouldn't be surprised if that kind of momentum around that continues, because obviously they're kind of making the right noises. Managers had missed a large part of the rally, when they were underweight Reliance, and now a lot of them have kind of added significant positions over the last year or so.
Okay. In the broader markets, are you looking at adding positions anywhere, given the state of things right now, and what's the trend looking like when it comes to mid caps and small caps?
So I think it's kind of become a little bit of a very, very stock pickers market, and it's been that for a while. So a large part of the money is anyways going towards those largish cap names, and that's also a derivation of because money is also going to sort of large and mid cap, multi cap funds. There is some sprinkling of money coming into some of the small cap, mid cap funds, but it's not extreme. I mean, it's not that sizable. So I think there it's becoming very, very stock specific. Even on the large cap counters, actually, it's it has been quite a polarized market, so to speak. So money has gone, like I said, to the Reliances, obviously the corporate banks. HDFC Bank continues to see some flows along with the Axis and ICICIs of the world. Maybe just some sprinkling of money coming into technology, but it's nothing sizable to kind of move the needle significantly.
So would you say the fear quotient or the cautiousness quotient is significantly higher when it comes to broader markets?
Absolutely, I would think so. And that's the trend that we've been seeing, I would say from the course of the year, but I think it's become even more significant over the last 2 to 3 months, where we are seeing, because FIs have obviously clearly been pulling out a lot of money. Markets have been going through challenging time, not just because of flows. There's so much negativity, obviously, with the whole NBFC and the way it's impacting even the auto sector. In fact, that's the other thing that we've started seeing, maybe marginally, but some buying into autos.
You said that last time.
Yes, that's right, and that's kind of continued. So Maruti continues to see some trickle of flows. Earlier in the year, there was a lot of selling in Maruti. It's not sizable, but I would look at that as maybe okay. Now levels have come to a point that why don't I just start adding some positions?
Okay. Besides Maruti and Reliance, which we've discussed, where is it that you're seeing inflows amongst large caps?
A couple of pharma names, actually. And this is again something we spoke about, which we saw last month too, and Dr. Reddy's son continue to see some flows, which is quite surprising. I mean, I haven't.
Is that stock specific again, or we were speaking to Saurabh Mukherjee earlier, and he was also mentioning the currency factor?
Correct.
Would it be partly to do with factors like?
I would definitely say so. And again, I think just given the way some of these stocks have been hammered, you start looking at from the perspective that, okay, it can't get much worse than this, and, you want to get into some of these counters. So it is, I would say, the 2 names that I mentioned, Reddy's and Sun, are probably the few ones who are getting a reasonable amount of flows, but, even like a Cipla or a DVs are seeing some flow. So it's not just restricted to a couple of counters, I would say quite a few counters are getting flows.
I noticed that among the large caps as well, there's a lot of PSU names like NTPC, ONGC, Coal India. Is that some sort of a trend that you see continuing with flows in PSUs?
So I think this was just a one-off-ish because of the CPSE buying that happened. But we also saw not just the CPSE, but there was also some addition from some of the regular diversified equity funds buying. But I think it was just to do largely related to this. So as and when the government comes and does this disinvestment, you will see these numbers or names pop up. NTPC is probably one of the few counters that has been seeing flows even beyond the CPSE, but I think the others are largely driven by CPSE.
From the broader end of the market, can you highlight some of the top sells and what have been the stocks that have been retained in the portfolio?
So I would say some of the sales, and again, sales haven't been significant, and I think what we've seen is not very significant, but we saw some profit booking in the likes of an Infi or an SBI, given that they did, make sort of lifetime highs in the month of July. But just very marginal trimming of positions. The other one that we've seen some selling out of, from the mid-cap counter, say a Mindtree, obviously given, you had the open offer and then, there's, you've had the management being replaced. There's just so much negative noise around that. We'll see how things settle. Investors did get out of it. Some of the NBFC mid-cap counters, Shriram Transport Finance, Sundaram Finance has seen some sort of money being taken off the table there.
Okay. And which are the stocks that have been retained in from the broader end of the market?
So I would say, the likes of, the larger names, your TCS, your ITC, while we haven't seen significant additions or some marginal additions, these are some of the names, including some of the other banks that I already spoke about.
Yeah.
The HDFC twins continue to kind of remain sizable positions. In fact, the other interesting thing that we've seen is that, we've been talking about ICICI being added. It's almost, it's the second largest holding that funds hold right now. HDFC used to be leaps and bounds ahead of in terms of the favorite stock on the counter. I think ICICI is almost there in terms of overall exposure. So I won't be surprised seeing the number of flows that are coming in. ICICI could potentially be the largest holding in the near future.
Okay, Kaustubh, great to have you in the studios. Thanks as always for taking the time out and speaking with us.